Revelation, a book with the central thrust of, don't worry, I'm with you, and you will overcome. It's a book dealing with the conflict between the Church of God and Rome, between Jesus and the Church of God against Rome and the devil. It was written about 77 to 79. Chapter 1 was introductory. It said hello from the Godhead and gave the inaugural vision and commission of John to write the book. Chapters 2 and 3 went together. They described the state of the church, its spiritual condition. It commended what could be commended, reprimanded what had to be reprimanded, gave the right kind of advice, and gave promises to the overcomer. Chapters 4 and 5, one block. They are at the beginning of the apocalyptic section of Revelation, the serious apocalyptic section. They're right at the beginning of it because they're just chock full of assurance. 4 and 5 said together, believe that God is all-powerful and that He loves you more than He's capable of expressing to you. Isn't that good news? I'm telling you, if we got around to knowing just how much God loved us, we may not be able to take it. So we're going into chapter 6 now. What will chapter 6 deal with? We talked about a little book in chapter 5, verse 1. It's in the hand of God. It's the destiny, the immediate destiny of the saints in the days that would lie ahead. It's close sealed. That is, it's sealed with 7 seals, the perfect sealing. Seals were used for a lot of purposes in ancient times and today. One of them certainly was to keep the thing from being interfered with, to keep it from being revealed until the one with the authority to rip off the seal came along. But the one with the authority to do it is along. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and he's going to rip off the seals. Now, seals are for, in this case, hiding things, keeping it closed, keeping it hidden. What then is the object of ripping off of seals? The opposite. Revealing. Revealing. When we read then of seals being ripped off, you in your mind's eye, it's a ridiculous little illustration, I know, but you in your mind's eye see this kind of sheepskin roll, and each time he rips off a seal, see it fall open a little bit more so that you can read more on it, you see? That's what's happening here. Chapter 6 will speak of the ripping off of 6 seals to let the saints know what is about to transpire in the future. Here we go. 6:1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice of thunder, "Come." And onto the stage, as it were, comes a white horse. He that sat on it had a bow. There was given unto him a crown. The word crown is Stephanos, not diadem. Diadem is the crown of royalty. The guy who has the character and the birth of royalty, you see. The Stephanos is the crown of the conqueror, the overcomer. Roman generals, for example, were never permitted to be called kings, but they were permitted to have crowns. Stephanoi. This is a white horse. The rider sitting on it has a bow, a victor's crown on his head, and his business is conquering. Who is this? You remember what I told you about the book being a book of comfort, and that every opportunity the Lord gets, He gives comfort. He's doing it here. This is the Christ. Well, someone says it was the Christ who ripped off the seal. I know, but that's no big deal to John at all. For one person to act 2 parts, for one symbol to speak of 2 different things, that's not a problem at all. Ray Summers says this right here, and the horse couldn't be Christ because that would mean he'd have to rip off the seal and then run and change and jump on a horse. What utter nonsense it all is. Come on. 6:1 says the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals. What are we supposed to see him doing? Putting his hoof on it and tearing it open with his teeth? Don't be ridiculous. This is Christ. White in the book of Revelation is always used of that which is holy. It's used 16 times in the book. And in all other 15, it's indisputably holy. It's the white garments, for example, that the elders and the saints wear. It's the white garments that God's angels wear. It's the white stone that the man gets who loves the Christ and overcomes. It's the white cloud upon which Jesus sits. It's the white horses in Revelation chapter 19, and they're said to be God's own. White is never used of anything evil. Whoever this is, it's a holy one. But what's particularly interesting in addition to that is there's only one other white horse singled out in the book of Revelation. Just one. And it's in chapter 19. And Christ rides on it. Now, there are other white horses as a group. They are mentioned in chapter 19, 11 and following. But there's only one other white horse that's singled out. And that's Christ's horse. In Revelation chapter 19, we hear this. 19:11, and I saw the heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. The one that rides on it is called Faithful and True. His name, 13, is the Word of God. Now, following him in verse 14, it says, are the armies of heaven on white horses. But there's one white horse singled out. In fact, so singled out that verse 19 says, I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat upon the horse. Well, he just mentioned a lot of horses. Yeah, but one of them is singled out. The only other white horse in the book that's singled out is Christ's. And white in the book of Revelation is always holy. And notice also in chapter 6 that this one has a crown, an overcomer's crown. And of course, of all of the overcomers, Christ is the overcomer. And his business is conquering. The Christ does just that. He comes forth conquering and to conquer. And here's what's particularly interesting also. You see this picture of someone sitting on a horse, bow in his hand, Stephanos on his head. They have found that on coins, many of them. It's the picture of a Parthian warrior. Christ is here portrayed as a Parthian warrior. Well, what's significant about that? Because Rome had a lot of enemies, but the one enemy that scared the brains out of her was Parthia. One of the first triumvirate, an unofficial triumvirate in Rome, was a man called Crassus. His two companions were Pompey and Julius Caesar. Well, Pompey and Julius Caesar really did themselves proud in their battles. Both of those were staggering generals. And Crassus wanted to get in on the glory. So he thought he would go against the Parthians. He hired him an Arab guide. That Arab guide led that idiot into the desert. The Parthians jumped on him in the desert, slew 20,000 Romans in one engagement, and took 10,000 captive. Rome was scared sick of Parthia. And in chapter 6, verse 2, the Bible opens up the future that's going to develop. And what does it say? Here comes Jesus. So you've got nothing to worry about. Here comes the conqueror and dresses this holy conqueror up in Parthian garb, telling Rome what? I'm your opponent. This is Jesus. Now, Mr. Lindsay and Walford and the rest hold that this is the Antichrist. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. That'd be criminal against God and against you. But do you know that Lindsay doesn't offer a single argument in favor of his Antichrist view? And Walford, after he offers his arguments that aren't worth a flip, admits, I haven't settled this issue. But they make the white-horsed one the vilest idiot to walk on God's earth in modern times. White is holy. It's never used of anything unholy in Revelation. And they've got the Antichrist on it. Now, why do they have him, the Antichrist? Because they need it so. And you see, if you bury the notion that this is the Antichrist, I'm not able to tell you just how serious a damage That is, to the whole premillenarian view. Zero in on this. Satisfy your own soul that whatever else it is, holy and conquering in holiness, it's Jesus Christ. Walvoord says it couldn't be Jesus Christ, or you'd have him answering his own command to come. That won't do. He says it can't be Jesus Christ because this guy causes famine and war and the like. Well, now, where does it say that? Where does it say that in these texts, that this one who rides the white horse causes the war and the famine and the rest, you see? But even if it had said that, and I wouldn't really argue too much about that, so what? Did my master promise his followers a rose garden? Matthew 10:34, what did he say? Think not that I'm come to send peace on earth. I'm not come to send peace, but a sword. What did he tell them over and over again? You'll be persecuted for my sake. Hang on in, okay? So, there is no argument against it being Christ that has been raised that's worth anything. And there's no argument in favor of it being the Antichrist that's even offered. Nothing's even offered. It's Christ. Chapter 6, 3 and 4, the second seal. This is war. War. And he opened the second seal, and I heard the second living creature saying, Come. And another horse came forth, a red horse. And to him that sat thereon, it was given to take peace from the earth, and that they, the men, should slay one another, and there was given unto him a great sword. This is war. Verses 4 through 8 mention war, famine, pestilence, and wild beasts. Okay? War, famine, pestilence, and wild beasts. We saw in the book of Ezekiel chapter 14 through 21, that these were the 4 sore judgments of God that would be poured on the earth. Here comes war in 3 and 4. Men brawling and fighting with one another. Armies, people killing and slaughtering. And of course, in the process, our brothers and sisters being slaughtered. Verses 5 and 6. The third seal is ripped off. And what do we have? Economic pressure. Famine. Scarcity of goods. He opened the third seal. I heard the third living creature saying, Come. And I saw and behold a black horse. And he that sat thereon had a balance in his hand. That's for weighing things. In the book of Ezekiel chapter 4, Ezekiel eats his food by weight and drinks his water by measure. The guy on the black horse has a balance. Verse 6, I heard as it were a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a measure of wheat for a shilling, 3 measures of barley for a shilling. So it's still available. It's bad famine. It's bad scarcity. But it's still available. You get 1 measure of wheat for 1 shilling. Now a shilling was 1 day's full pay. What's the guy doing then? He's barely able to keep his head above water. Food is scarce. And he's having to work all day just to keep his family or himself alive, you see. Scarcity and economic pressure. He says, don't hurt the oil and the wine. Last phrase of verse 6. There are two possibilities to that. That simply stresses that the famine, the scarcity, is not too radical. That it's a stiff famine and scarcity, but there's stuff available. It may suggest also that the economic pressure is felt more by the poor than by those who are able to buy. Okay? But he's cutting short, you notice, the barley and the wheat. That's the staff of life. So, war, verses 3 and 4. Scarcity and economic pressure, 5 and 6. Now here comes the fourth seal, verses 7 and 8. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, come. And I saw and behold a pale horse, green. Well, the word is not so much green as it is greeny yellow. But it's a sick-looking color. It's used of grass that is not quite green. I saw and behold a greeny yellow, a sick-looking horse. And he that sat upon him, his name was Death. And Hades followed after him. And Death and Hades are partners here, you see, in the picture. And there was given unto them authority over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword and famine and death and wild beasts. In this verse, all four sore judgments are summed up. What's the seal? What are the seals saying? Christ is in control. Worry nothing. But on the earth is coming economic pressure, warfare and killing among people, plunder and the rest. There's going to be pestilence, wild beasts. These things are simply the overall word that judgment is going to hit the earth. The church of God will suffer in it. The oppressor will abuse them. They'll abuse one another. There'll be scarcity and famine hit the earth, and everyone will be under turmoil. That's not the best news in the world. Somebody says, fits our day. And all we're hearing about is war and famine and drought, hot weather. Nothing much about evil beasts just yet, but I read an article somewhere. What was it I was reading about? Oh, some gentleman had it all worked out, where animals were getting bigger, and he had some statistics that showed, that animals were on the upswing, and the killer bees from Brazil came into it, a time or two, that they're coming up and on us, Every man and his mother has a shot at applying biblical scriptures to TV headlines. Here are the four sore judgments of God being poured out on the earth, and the church of God in the middle of the whole thing. You know what Tertullian said? Tertullian said, when it doesn't rain and the crops are in trouble, we get the hammer from our enemies. When it rains too much and the Tiber overflows and affects the city, they give us the digging. They blame us. When things go bad, the politicians and the statesmen, the sociologists, psychologists are always turning on the Christians and saying it's their fault. My wife was ill some years ago. Went to a fellow for help. The guy said to him, "You're too religious. That's your problem." There you go. Chapter 6, verses 9 through 11, the fifth seal. I saw underneath the altar the souls of them that have been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Here's the persecution of saints. And they cried with a great voice, saying, "How long, O Master? Holy and true, do you not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth?" What's ahead? Persecution of saints, whipping the brethren, raping the sisters. And in the vision, John sees the blood around the altar, as it were. And that blood cries out to God, "When are you going to avenge us?" And he says in verse 11, "Give them a white robe. You'll rest yet for a little while, until your fellow servants also, your brethren, who should be killed even as you are, should have fulfilled their course." He said, "Don't worry. There are others to be slain. There are others to join you in the persecution. I must let the ungodly fill up his cup. And when he does, I'll see to it. But don't worry about it, okay? I'll take care of it. I will avenge you. Be patient." Someone says, "Well, that looks to me like it's a bad spirit. They're looking for revenge." Well, yeah, revenge in one sense, but if you mean revenge in a bad sense, vindictiveness, no. It's not wrong to want justice. Do you understand that? I think your government, your courts, should have sentenced some people to death that it didn't do it. The Bible teaches that. Let's take up our study from there next time. God bless you. Thanks for being with us.